Hey guys, want to cover the BioLite stove today. Something you've been seeing in my videos for the past year. It is a very heavy-duty construction, stainless. The module stores in the top. There are a couple holes here, one for the sort of probe that goes in to where it obtains the heat, sends that into the thermal regulator or the TEG device here. There's a cooling fins and a fan in here powered by an internal battery that will blow air through this chamber and create that gasification to get a very hot burn. Um, Slides onto there, unit locks into the bottom, legs fold out. Very sturdy design, very easy to operate. Battery on here that you should have pre-charged. The reason you want it pre-charged is you need to be able to cool that TEG device. It can overheat if you can't be able to get that heat removed. So simple button, you turn it on. Eventually it'll be able to tell you that it turns green and you're able to charge your devices. You can switch it to high, which it won't let me yet, but press and hold and it'll turn off. It has an automatic cooling. I mean, it's pretty smart in its design. The problem most of you guys are going to run into is you're looking for this as a way to charge your devices in the backcountry. And because of its low amperage output, it really isn't a great device for that. It can do that. And I think it's more of a secondary use of this stove and not a primary use. If you want to, just have a backup to know that if you can get a fire started and your phone's dead and somebody needs help, that you could charge this and be able to make a call. Like 20 minutes of burn is going to get you, enough time to talk for a long time to send for help. If you're looking to charge your stuff, this really isn't the device for you. The philosophy of use for the BioLite is going to be something that does not require you carrying any necessary fuel for it. This is going to be designed for a longer trip, not just a day hike because of its weight. It is extremely hot, so you're going to boil water and melt snow very, very fast. And, the charging of your units is basically a side effect. And that's kind of the way I want you to think about this when we start looking at the philosophy of use for this thing, because of its weight. Now, other than the weight of the unit, you're going to hear a lot of negativity about, oh, it's very expensive. Like I said, it's heavy. And it really, if you're trying to use it as an ultralight backpacker, this isn't the device for you. So I think when we compare it to a couple other stoves and you start to see the philosophy of this thing, where it really shines is in that long-term quick boil. The reason I say it's not good because of its low amperage is because this fire combustion chamber in here is not suited for any sort of long-term burn like the firebox is. You could sit there and just push more wood into the firebox stove and it's going to be able to handle it. You're going to be able to keep a pot boiling for a very long time. The BioLite is really designed for getting that quick meal, that 20-minute, not carrying fuel, being able to get your mountain house, boiled, melt some snow, things like that. It is not designed to be staying on long enough to charge your devices 100%. I've got some video that I may or may not include in this. Maybe I'll make it a separate video. It's about 6 minutes long of me testing this in my backyard. Most of you guys have seen several of the outings I've done where I'm not in my backyard. And part of the reason of doing this video is most of the reviews you're going to find of this stove is guys sitting in their backyard doing the test. And so that's the reason I took a year to do this review, because you have to get out, you have to be able to use it, you have to find out whether the frozen pine cones are going to be able to light. In my winter lake series, or a video that I recently did, I had a very hard time getting that stove to stay lit. There was just so much moisture that had blown on everything coming off that lake that it did take a while. The difficulty, not only for long-term burning, but there is not enough room in here to get a real strong coal base. With that fan blowing so hard, it burns through your fuel so quickly that the coal base in here is not really going to be able to set up. And also, let's see if we can find something. So I've got my Skeletal here, and you'll see it's about that much combustion chamber. Now you can't go much higher than that until it burns down, because then your pot won't fit on there. So you're looking at 4 or 5 inches room for a stick to stick in there. Now you've got to leave room for a coal base. That leaves you with these sticks that you got to get down to about 3-4 inches to be able to stick in there and still be able to get a pot on there. With being on pots, your smaller pots are not going to work very well with this. This is a standard sort of Glacier Cup Snow Peak 700. You see that it fits inside of their little stove stands on here, their cup stands, and that is just going to snuff your fire out. So most of it, as you see, I use my zebra pot simply because it is large enough, it is big enough in diameter that I can actually get it on there. So really, most of your smaller backpacking style, cups and things are going to be too small for this unit anyway. All right, zero this out. Since we're talking about weight, the whole unit, even with all the crusties sitting on it, is just over 2 pounds. 2 pounds, 1 ounces. And remember that as we kind of go through, because like we said, we want to look for what its philosophy is. And another great stove that I have is the MSR Whisper Lite. Now the Whisper Lite comes with the stove and the top pump piece and is only about 11 ounces. But with fuel and the added fuel canister here, you're talking a lot more. So let's just kind of put this on here. That right there with the windscreen and everything that's in there is about 15 ounces. If I add the fuel, which isn't even full, I'm at 2 pounds, 8 ounces. So this Whisper Lite setup right here, which is great for long term, or I should say a long trip, it's going to be able to melt a lot of snow. It's going to be able to make a lot of food meals while you're out for a prolonged time, not just a day hike. You're looking at heavier, not by much, a few ounces, 4 ounces or something, over the BioLite. So again, people talk about cost. This guy base unit is going to be 80 bucks with all the little accessories I've got in here and things to maintain the pump seals and everything else that works on these pressurized stoves. You're talking over 100 bucks, another 20 bucks for the MSR. So again, you're right there where the BioLite stove is. So if you're in a region maybe that doesn't have combustible fuels in the desert, maybe above tree line in a extremely granite rocky area, you're not going to be able to use the BioLite because you're not going to have the biomass fuel available. So maybe that's where the MSR comes in, a complete tundra situation where you don't have the biomass. This is a great option, but again, very dependable, very well known, and most people wouldn't consider it heavy or expensive when you're looking at the philosophy of use for this stove. Not sort of a through hike or anything else. So it's very comparable with the BioLite. Another great option is like a canister stove. My small little Optimus is under 3 ounces by its stove itself. I do have the pot and things, but because none of the other systems are really including the pot, I'm not going to include that. It comes with the pot for about $60. But when you start talking about long term, so maybe a couple day hike, you're going to have 200-gram stove canisters. Now we're looking at just under a pound. With the stove, you are right at 1 pound. So that's great, but it's winter and you're going to be boiling a lot. The average canister stoves on the market, you're going to get 40 minutes worth of burn time. So that could maybe be 2 pots of snow melting, 20 minutes at a time to be able to get your water. So now you've got maybe, 2 days. If you only do 1 big pot of water a day, you've got 2 days there, but you're going for 4 or 5 days. So you're now including 4 canisters. And I think that top one isn't even full. With the stove, you're back at, before it all falls over, you're back at just under that 2 pound mark. So that's kind of what I'm talking about with the philosophy. It's winter or you're on a long trip. You're going to have to carry the fuel that's going to support that trip, even if you're carrying a very light canister stove. You can get bigger canisters, but most canister stove on the market are going to be about the same sort of burn rate that you've seen. And other options that are going to be contenders with the BioLite stove are going to be stoves like the International that we talked about, where you've got 100 ounces of fuel. It's about 40 minutes of burn time. You average about 10 liters with that. The Jet Boil, which is going to be about 100 bucks, it's about the same size, but it's going to be about half the weight. The Jet Boil by itself, without the canisters, is about 1 pound. So again, you're on a long trip, talk about another pound with the canisters to be able to melt the snow, make the meals for a 6-7 day trip. So now you're right back where you started with the BioLite at your 2 pounds. The Jet Boil is also right about $100, depending without buying the canisters. So you're still at that $100 plus mark compared to the BioLite stove. Another setup on the market that's similar to the Jetboil is the MSR reactor. It's made to be very frugal with its fuel. It's made to boil very quickly. Problem is, it's $180, and that's without all the fuel canisters. Again, it is about 1 pound, but again, you add the fuel canisters, depending on a long trip, now you're back up to a pound with the canisters, right back where the BioLite is. They all work about the same, like I mentioned. Like the Jetboil is going to be 11 liters of water on a 100-gram canister. So, if it's winter, it's obviously going to take longer. So really, if you can get past all the forum speak about the fact that it's expensive and it's heavy, and get down to the fact of how are you going to use that, then you're really going to see where the BioLite shines. The fact that I don't have to carry the fuel, even though it is a little bit more expensive, there's the caveat that it will charge my cell phone if I need it to. But it will take a very long time, and even electronics in a cold environment, the newer smartphones will shut down when they get cold. If the battery temperature is detected as too cold or too hot, they will shut down. And I'll insert a few clips maybe up here in the corner of me doing some burn tests with that in the cold environment in the teens. So, it's a very unique stove. I got involved with it very early on with sort of a promissory hook to saying, hey, I'm willing to give you money to see this get off the ground. And because of its extremely innovative design. Is it perfect? Not by any means. The output really needs to be higher, but they've got a very smart design. Their company themselves do a lot of good things for around the world. With the money that you're paying for this, they're making bigger units that they're sending around the world. You can go look on their website for reasoning behind that and the smoke inhalation that causes a lot of the illnesses throughout the world. But I'm no stranger to TEG devices. In fact, I've tried to build my own several times. This is a small TEG device. It's 1 amp, 5 volts. Couldn't quite get the cooling efficient enough, even with a small fan on here. I was looking a way to charge devices off candle power. So, there's plenty of other things on there. I have a cup charger, and we'll be doing some other tests with that and comparing it with this, probably with the Firebox stove. In conclusion, if you're looking for a stove that's going to heat water very quickly, you're not going to have to carry fuel. It's a biomass stove. And because it is a gasification stove with a fan system, you're not going to ever have to charge that or worry about your 9-volt running out off your homemade system. Anything I bring up, you guys can probably make at home. But the fact that they're bringing this innovation to the public in a format that is easy to use and works, other than the fact that it's maybe a little bit low on the amperage output to charge your devices, this is version 1. I'm happy to support the company to try it out, things like that. This is not going to be something to be able to cook gourmet meals on because it is so hot. Any of these modern stoves I've shown you, it is difficult to cook on because of temperature regulation, because they're meant to boil that water so quickly, whether you need to sanitize that water for drinking and purify it, or you're just looking to boil water to heat your freeze-dried meal. Look at the philosophy of what this was designed for, and if it's for you, that's fine. I do know that REI is carrying it. They do have a grill accessory that is coming out for it, and I may or may not pick it up. I think the surface area of what the grill looks like it provides isn't really that advantageous. Plus, it's another pound plus. That's almost another 2 pounds, I think, just for the grill weight. So that really takes us out of the backpacking realm and really sort of obliterates any reason for carrying the grill with that. The one thing it does right is it adds to the top, if you'll see the photos of it, the combustion chamber comes up quite a bit higher, and the lid is off the top of that grill. So you're able to put longer sticks and things in there, which would make it a whole lot better to control your burn. And that's kind of the downside with some of these stoves. If you try to run these too long, like I've said, the combustion chamber will either fill up and you won't have enough room for putting new wood in. Your pots won't sit on top, or you're constantly taking the pots off to refeed this. Those are all issues that any wood burning stove is going to have, but because of the gasification fan on here, it really accelerates the burn. So all those symptoms that are coming up come up much quicker. But if you're only looking for that 6-minute burn time to get your water boiled, to get your mountain house done, and you're on a long trip, I think that really shines right there, as I've said before. So I'm going to quit blabbing. I thank you for your time. Thank you for watching. We'll catch you on the next one.